Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Society of the Eternal Mile podcast. I'm your host, Noah Sias. The Wednesday edition of the show focuses on new and upcoming artists that have caught my attention through either playing with them on the road, catching them through social media, or working with them as a client. On today's episode, we'll be talking to Justin Sparrow of iamnotaperson, who happens to be a fellow native of Muskegon, Michigan. Justin and I have been working together musically for 13, coming up on 14 years. We've been in a few bands together, worked on numerous songs, and have been involved with each other's projects in some way, shape, or form. His newest endeavor, I Am Not a Person, has been somewhat of a cult hit, gaining coverage with Circle Pit TV and showing up on underground music blogs and forums. So before we get started, here's the first track. Here's Oil and Water by I Am Not a Person.
When I think of marine, I think of two things: asphalt and trouble.
Welcome, swallows, dip and swing. Take the cue from the slightest thing. Railing fog into my room. Behind the Jupiter on me.
Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
When did you first get involved with music?
I think it was around 2003 or 4 when my best friend at the time, we just decided to pick up a couple guitars, start playing, listen to a lot of Metallica, you know, that whole story. And from there, instead of trying to play covers and things like that, I just went straight to writing my own stuff. And I jumped right into Guitar Pro and just kind of went with it. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how any of this worked. And it just started from there and kept building until where I am now, I guess.
And as mentioned in your intro, we've been working together musically for pretty much that entire time, which is funny that, you know, we kind of hit the same road at the same time unintentionally.
Right.
Just through like mutual friends in high school and whatnot. But yeah, it's been 13 coming up on 14 years. And
that's crazy.
You know, we've been writing together, working together, and it seems like we always tend to be like a silent partner in whatever project we have going on. So just kind of interesting that we have that kind of longevity.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with us being involved in similar musical elements without being like each other exactly. So that kind of helps a lot. We don't fight because we don't have the same ideas about stuff, but we can still work together because they're still pretty similar. So it's been working out pretty well.
For sure.
Doesn't feel like it's been 14 years.
Yeah, I know, right? So your most recent project, I Am Not a Person, has been a very interesting and growing cult experience. When did you start I Am Not a Person?
I want to say that was around 2012, something like that. I had the idea from some conversations that I was having with people, and it just kind of built itself.
Where did the name come from?
I was talking with people who were close to me about how basically existing made me feel, especially relationship elements and male or female for that matter. But I said, it just makes me feel like I'm not a person. And then, a couple months later, I was like, oh, well, there it is. There's the name. I was tired of working with the stuff that I was doing at the time, and I was looking for something to just grab onto and do. And like I said, it just came to me and it kind of built itself once you have that concept. It's my own expression of myself, so it's not like it was hard where I had to fight for things to think of to come out of me. I'm just expressing to everyone how I feel.
Sure. Well, and like you kind of covered on there, being able to kind of have it penned under a different name other than your own is always helpful too.
Oh, right, for sure.
Gives you your own identity.
Right, it's like you have a character, even though the character is me. It's a built-up version of myself and the things that I think and feel.
So your current release, 2016's Inside the Enemy Machine, is definitely one of my favorite projects that I've worked on as a producer to date.
Thanks, man.
Hits familiar territory while standing out on its own. Where did you come up with the title?
I spend a lot of time on the internet, and that leads to a lot of philosophical elements and discussions and things like that. And I can't remember who the term comes from exactly, but the definition is the lack of the usual social or ethical standards in an individual or group. And being that I was kind of in a situation in my life at the time where I felt like I was surrounded by people who didn't really have any standards, that's where the title came from. I was just kind of in the eye of the tornado, as it were.
How did you approach the record and what was the writing process like?
To be honest, I don't really remember writing a whole lot of the tunes because they came out so quick. It was just I'm in a bad place and I need to get this out of me, and I got it out of me. I was doing a lot of drugs and stuff like that at the time, and I'm still amazed listening to it now how it even got made.
Sure.
So
Yeah, sometimes going through traumatic events like that and coming out through the other side is just like, wow, this actually happened.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's a core element of where all this I'm not a person stuff tends to come out of. So it's not on purpose, but it just happens to be that means that everything's not forced. It's all very genuine.
So I kind of have some insider info with this, but I suppose we'll give the listeners something to observe. The amount of layers underneath the actual main instrumentation is borderline insane. While it's usually incorporated pretty subtly, any given track can have anything from noise to talking to pop song worthy loops and damn near anything else that you can think of, giving it an interesting industrial vibe in a sense. What was the inspiration to incorporate that element into the writing process?
I feel like a lot of bands and a lot of music that I listen to, especially nowadays, sounds pretty empty because the mixing and the production tends to give a cleaner quality to it, and everything is really separated. And for me, I like the dirty, noisy, I don't know what the hell is going on kind of sound. So adding more sounds is almost like an expression of what's going on in my head, but also it's a side effect of my lack of mixing skills when I'm doing my own demos at home. I just have to fill in that space, and then so I fill it in with a bunch of stuff, and at the same time I want things to be catchy, but I don't always want to have the guitar playing the catchy bits. So I just keep adding things until it sounds right to me. Without the other stuff there, it doesn't sound right. I know when it's done when I jam a bunch of extra shit in there.
Sure. Lyrically, it hits a lot of pretty deep subjects. Care to elaborate on any of the themes?
Like, this has been a theme for everything that we've talked about so far, but it's personal expression, and I feel like I have a unique perspective. I have cerebral palsy, and that tends towards a different life experience than most people have in their own lives. Everyone has their own life experience, but I mean, most people in my position don't have the physical or sometimes the mental ability to express what this is like for them. So I feel like I can do that where other people can't. Like a lot of people with my disability couldn't play a guitar. Their fingers and their hands don't really work, or their mind is different, or whatever it may be. And I'm lucky enough to be able to do that. So those themes come out from me and my disability together. It's not just about the disability, obviously, but it's not just about me. It's about people. It's about society. It's about the patterns that I see all around me. The things that people aren't willing to talk about, I talk about them.
What's your favorite track?
I really like A Bitter Pill to Swallow. That one hits really heavy for me. And Oil and Water are the two huge heavy hitters. Honestly, the whole album that I have out now is designed to be listened to front to back. So I like all of them. Those are the ones in particular that I listen to if I'm just looking for a track or two on my free time or whatever.
And lastly, and perhaps my favorite fun fact about this project that tends to catch people by surprise, what kind of guitar are you using to track this material?
Oh boy, okay. I am still using the first guitar that my parents ever bought me when I first started to learn. It is a Fender Squier Stratocaster, purple. And with the stock pickups and everything's stock. I barely ever change the strings on it unless I'm, recording an album or something like that. But that's the one that still gets used for this record. I have two other guitars, but I use those for other projects. So it just kind of ended up being that way by default.
My favorite thing is when I show it off, when I showed the material off to people, they're just like, "Man, what kind of guitar does he have? It sounds so sick." And it's just like, "Oh man, you can't wait to find out." And I tell them, and they're always super disappointed. It's just like, "Oh man." There's something about having a guitar that doesn't have enough strings for the tuning that you want and being the wrong scale length to where, like, when you're hitting open, you have to make a conscious effort to like be in total control of it. Otherwise, it's just like it goes all over the place.
Right.
But at the same time, that adds its own interesting like characteristic to it where it's like, yeah, if I want to beat the shit out of this lowest string, I'm going to do it. And it's going to give a total like different tone characteristic.
It's almost anxious in a way. And I feel like it adds more to the sound of the I'm Not a Person stuff because it's cheap and it's dirty. And I gotta say, those pickups are sick.
They are.
Found another guitar that I've bought on the cheap that has been able to top that one. That's another reason why I keep using it. Why fix what's not broke?
Absolutely.
And I can't afford to be buying guitars all the time, so it works. So I use it.
Exactly. And it just goes to show that gear is not everything by any stretch of the imagination sometimes.
Use what you have and make it the best that you can. I know people always say that, but it's really true. Play to your strengths.
Here's another track from I Am Not a Person. This is The Birds and the Bees.
The male has a good set of lungs, but he'll have to do more than flutter his eyelids if he wants to impress her. It'll all depend on his performance.
You say that you're wrong. son's left a note.
So we're currently in production on your second release, which is your first full length for this project, titled Morning Sickness. Again, having the insider advantage here, I've had the opportunity to hear everything so far, and it's a prominent step forward for the project.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Same questions as before, I suppose. Where did the title come from?
This is another release that is born out of my relationship issues, we'll say. And just an emotional time in my life. I felt like I needed to get stuff out. I have a lot of loss that I've had to deal with, and this last time was particularly difficult. So I felt like a great way to express that was the title Morning Sickness. I'm sick from mourning.
How did you approach the writing process for this record?
Some of these tunes have been sitting around for a while, since before the first record, actually, and they've just been spiced up since then. But beyond that, it was just, I want to make this more I Am Not a Person than the first record, if that makes any sense to anybody. But I want to push it more. I want to be more melodic, catchier, still expressing those ideals that I hold, and just trying to be the best I can be at this. That's where this is going, and hopefully in the future, that's where it continues to go.
I haven't had an opportunity to see lyrics just yet, but based on the music alone, I can imagine that this one gets there thematically. Any new grounds covered on this release from the previous release?
Similar to the previous one, it's very personal material, but I feel like this one is a lot more overt in the themes that it is exploring, and more direct in a lot of ways. And I feel like it's a lot more mature. There's a lot more singing and melody on this record, and the lyrical content is a lot more mature as well, because I've matured. I've gotten older since that record came out, and it's only natural for that to happen. But I'm very proud of the lyrics that I have, and I feel like it ties together with the music excellently. Of course, I would think that, but not to toot my own horn, but it's all one package. It's all a singular idea. The music and the lyrics come together to make this thing that is this album that I'm expressing. They're not separate for me.
What's your favorite track?
That one's pretty difficult on this one. Since no one's going to know the titles, I would say that the first three are really solid straight through. The whole album's really solid straight through. I would say that the favorite track for me, as far as the musical stuff, is probably the ending track, because it's got this really strong, almost kind of a Nirvana feel, with just kind of hammering on some chords, and it's pretty simple, but it's powerful and it gets there. And I have a lot of interesting in-betweens, as we call them, and I have my favorite one in that respect is probably one of the tunes that sounds very vaporwave-esque, and it's kind of long and drawn out and just groovy. I listen to a lot of rap music, and that comes through a little bit in this one, more so than the last one. And I just enjoy the dichotomy of having the heavy, beautiful melodic parts with the chill electronic kind of bits. And I also have some piano tunes on this one that I'm really proud of, that I composed. And I think it all just fits together really well.
I know there's a few people on the docket for guest spots that haven't been announced yet. You definitely had some great features on the last record, and I know that this time around definitely won't disappoint. Any idea on when the release date's going to be for Morning Sickness?
It's probably going to be in the fall sometime. For personal reasons, I would have liked to maybe have it in December, but I'm probably going to be releasing it before that, just because I want to get it out there. I'm excited about it. I'm proud of it, and I want people to hear it. So it'll probably be released not long after it's done.
And one last burning question that I know newcomers to the project will ask. What the hell is going on with the font on pretty much all of your social media?
Well, first of all, Facebook is never very happy when I decide to use that. They won't let me sponsor any posts or anything like that. But I have to thank whoever made something called a Zalgo text. That's what I use. And I know it's been very popular with people in the past on internet forums and such, so I can't claim full rights or full original idea, element with that. But it basically came from the internet, just like a lot of the things that I use and that I do. I just think that it kind of expresses that weird mental space that I'm often in, where I'm trying to express something and people aren't really understanding, or I can't really express it properly. You have to kind of dig a little bit deeper. and that text just kind of obfuscates the entire thing. You have to really look at it to read what I'm saying when I use it. I just like the idea. I think it fits in with the whole "I am not a person" persona in a great way.
All right, so before we go, let's do a plug for I'm Not a Person. Where can people find this project?
Sure. Right now, my first album that I put out is on Bandcamp. It's iamnotaperson.bandcamp.com. I'm also on Facebook. It's facebook.com/iamnotapersonmusic. And I'm also on Instagram, which I post teasers and behind-the-scenes stuff and everything like that. So you should definitely check it out. It is at iamnotapersonmusic.
Justin, thanks for coming on the show to showcase your music. Looking forward to seeing where this project goes next.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I can't wait for it to be done and so people can hear it. That'll be great.
That concludes this episode. Thanks to Justin for coming on the show. Make sure to follow I Am Not a Person on social media and be sure to pick up Inside the Anno Me Machine over on Bandcamp. I've been your host, Noah Sias. As always, thank you for listening. And to close out this episode, here's one more track from I'm Not a Person. Here is A Bitter Pill to Swallow.
Stop.